In the heart of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, stands a massive stone fortress that once represented a radical idea about crime and punishment. Today, Eastern State Penitentiary is abandoned, broken, and covered in weeds. Its empty corridors and crumbling cells have become famous for stories of ghosts, strange voices, and unexplained encounters. But the real history of Eastern State Penitentiary is already frightening enough. The prison opened in 1829 and was designed around an unusual philosophy. Reformers believed that prisoners could become better people through isolation, reflection, and repentance. Instead of placing hundreds of prisoners together, Eastern State separated them into individual cells. Each cell had its own small exercise yard, allowing prisoners to spend most of their time alone. The architecture was extraordinary. 7 long cell blocks extended from a central hub like the spokes of a wheel. Guards could stand in the center and see deep into the corridors. Thick stone walls surrounded the prison, making escape extremely difficult. But inside those walls, loneliness became part of the punishment. Prisoners were often kept in near total isolation. They were not supposed to communicate with one another. Their names could even be replaced by numbers. Meals were delivered through small openings in the cell doors. Some prisoners spent years living this way. One of the most disturbing aspects of the system was the psychological effect of isolation. The idea was that silence would encourage prisoners to think about their crimes and eventually reform themselves. Instead, prolonged isolation could produce severe emotional distress. As the years passed, Eastern State's strict system began to change. The prison became overcrowded, and the original philosophy became increasingly difficult to maintain. Eventually, prisoners were allowed to work and interact more freely. By the 20th century, Eastern State had become a conventional prison rather than the revolutionary experiment its founders had imagined. And then came some of its most notorious prisoners. The prison housed criminals ranging from ordinary offenders to dangerous gang members. One of the most famous was Al Capone, the notorious Chicago gangster. Capone spent time at Eastern State in 1929 after being convicted of carrying a concealed weapon. Unlike many prisoners, he reportedly received relatively comfortable treatment. Historical accounts describe him having furniture, decorations, and other privileges in his cell. But the prison was not a comfortable place for most inmates. Its walls witnessed violence, punishment, illness, desperation, and death. Guards used harsh disciplinary methods against prisoners who broke the rules. One infamous punishment was the water bath, in which an inmate could be restrained, soaked with cold water, and left outside in freezing weather. Another punishment involved placing prisoners in a dark underground cell known as the hole. These methods were intended to control prisoners, but they also revealed the brutal reality of 19th century prison life. Eastern State finally closed its doors in 1971. For years afterward, the enormous complex was left abandoned. Nature slowly began taking it back. Grass grew through cracks in the concrete. Trees pushed through ruined walls. Birds nested inside empty cells. Paint peeled from the walls and rust spread across metal doors. The abandoned prison soon developed a reputation for being haunted. Visitors and workers have reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, voices coming from abandoned cells, and strange sounds when nobody else was nearby. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving through the darkness. Paranormal investigators have also visited the site, searching for evidence of supernatural activity. One of the most famous stories concerns Cell Block 6. Visitors have described hearing whispers and seeing strange shapes inside the dark corridors. Others have reported sudden feelings of being watched, even when they were completely alone. But there is an important difference between the prison's documented history and its ghost stories. There is no scientific proof that the prison is haunted. Many strange experiences can have ordinary explanations. Old buildings produce unusual noises. Wind moves through broken windows and tunnels. Metal expands and contracts as temperatures change. Darkness can make shadows appear to move. Yet standing inside Eastern State can still feel unsettling. Imagine walking through a corridor where hundreds of prisoners once lived in isolation. Imagine opening a cell door and seeing a tiny room. where someone may have spent years without meaningful human contact. The silence itself can become frightening. Perhaps that is why Eastern State Penitentiary continues to attract visitors. Today, the prison operates as a historic site and museum. Tourists can walk through its ruined cell blocks and learn about the people who lived and worked there. Exhibits explain the prison's history, its controversial punishment system, famous inmates, and eventual abandonment. The prison's walls do not need ghosts to tell a terrifying story. They tell the story of human suffering. They tell the story of an experiment that attempted to reform criminals through isolation but discovered how deeply humans need human contact. And they remind visitors that behind every cell door was a real person. Some were violent criminals. Some committed minor offenses. Some were desperate people who made terrible choices. But all of them experienced the same massive stone walls. Eastern State Penitentiary remains one of Philadelphia's most haunting landmarks. Not simply because people claim to hear voices or see shadows, but because its history is real. The broken corridors, empty cells, and rusted doors are physical reminders of a forgotten era of punishment. When the sun goes down and darkness fills the abandoned cell blocks, it is easy to imagine footsteps echoing through the prison. Maybe they are only sounds produced by an aging building. Maybe they are the wind. Or maybe, as some visitors believe, the walls remember. And that is what makes Eastern State Penitentiary so frightening. You do not need to believe in ghosts to feel that something remains behind those walls.